The American Bar Association just voted to let law schools bypass the LSAT entirely, removing the LSAT requirement. Now, what does this mean for you if you're applying to law school this cycle or beyond? Today, I'm going to walk you through how this could impact admissions, scholarships, and your chances. First, for those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I personally increased my own LSAT score from a 152 to a 175. Now, this change probably won't impact admissions this cycle, but in the longer term, it could lead to the biggest change in how admissions decisions are rendered in the last 25 years. Here's what's new. The American Bar Association has voted to allow law schools to apply for a variance, which would allow them to admit students without requiring the LSAT or any other standardized test. If a school is approved for a variance, a school could operate this way for at least 3 to 5 years before reapplying to continue that variance. This change comes after years of debate. Supporters of the change argue that going test optional will expand access to law school and increase racial diversity in legal education. Opponents warn this could remove or erode standards and increase a reliance on more subjective factors like GPAs and personal statements. Now, you might be saying, GPAs are not subjective, they're numerical, but here's the thing. Undergraduate GPAs in particular are subject to massive, rampant grade inflation. The head of LSAC even once said GPAs are so inflated as to be virtually meaningless, and I happen to agree with this. Obviously, a 3.5 in engineering is a lot more significant than a 3.5 in the humanities. And of course, personal statements are qualitative, not quantitative. So how concrete is this rule change? Not very concrete yet. This variance process is still an experiment, and it's up to individual schools to apply for the variance. Even if a school does apply for it, many will likely still stick with the LSAT as their main tool for evaluating applicants. And here's a precedent for this. First off, in Canada, law schools, of course, are not subject to the American Bar Association rules, but they still use the LSAT in most cases because they find it useful. For the same reasons I mentioned, GPA and personal statements not being as relevant metrics for them to look at. Additionally, in the med school world, while med schools are not required to use the MCAT for admissions, they still do because, again, they find it useful. So what this change actually means, the LSAT's not going anywhere anytime soon, not tomorrow, not this cycle, not even in the next few years. This variance vote is a test run policy, which is meant to allow schools to experiment with test optional. But this does still signal a shift in how the ABA is viewing standardized testing in law school admissions. The standard 509 that requires law schools to use a valid and reliable admissions test like the LSAT is probably not here to stay. It's probably going to go away. So which schools are likely to drop the LSAT requirement first? It's not going to be top law schools. It's not going to be T14. They're not likely to ditch the LSAT entirely, and they'll still continue using it as a key measure for distinguishing between different applicants. They value their prestige. They value their rankings. They want to keep that ranking as much as they complain about it. The lower ranked schools may also keep the LSAT because it helps them determine which applicants are likely to pass the bar exam. These schools do not want to risk their ABA accreditation. So schools in the middle, I'm talking here schools ranked, say, 51 to 100, may be the first to experiment with test optional admissions. Schools like Arizona, for example, have been pretty open to experimentation. They may be the first to go for this variance. And speaking of rankings, of course, the US News rankings are a major complicating factor because LSAT scores play a significant role in determining a law school's ranking, and this is what helps schools maintain their prestige. And so even if the American Bar Association no longer required schools to use a test like the LSAT, schools would still feel significant pressure to maintain their LSAT score medians for ranking purposes. And as LSAT score inflation continues to increase due to the fact that LSAC has become a lot more liberal in granting accommodations, schools will feel increased pressure to admit applicants with the highest LSAT scores possible. And of course, the LSAT still matters a great deal for not only getting into law school, but also getting you significant scholarship money merit-based scholarships are the best way for applicants to typically avoid taking on significant law school debt. And so if you don't apply with an LSAT score, you're missing out on significant financial aid opportunities. And the thing is, your GPA is probably pretty fixed at this point in time, especially if you are looking at the LSAT, you're probably a senior in college, if not a recent college graduate or beyond. And so your GPA is probably close to set in stone, if not entirely set in stone. The LSAT remains your biggest opportunity to not only improve your chances at getting into law school, but also getting you that scholarship money. Now, let me share a story with you. I recently worked with a student who had a low GPA. I'm talking here 3.2, but she was able to outweigh that low GPA with a top LSAT score. I'm talking here a 173. And so this score not only landed her acceptance to a top 20 law school, but it also got her a 75% tuition scholarship, meaning 3/4 of her tuition was knocked out. That scholarship covered the majority of tuition. And so for her, the LSAT was a chance not only to get into a top law school, but also to get a significant scholarship as well. It let her rewrite her narrative. It meant that her GPA was not her destiny. A high LSAT can outweigh a low GPA. So back to this ABA vote here, back to this new variance that allows schools to go test optional. While the vote allows this variance process to move forward, schools still need to individually apply to participate. And so that means any impact is going to be gradual. Over time, I do expect that more and more schools will go for this variance just because it gives them more flexibility in admissions. But I do still expect at the same time that the majority of applicants will get in with LSAT scores. And schools are going to take more of a gradual wait and see approach while they monitor outcomes. Law schools and the ABA are relatively conservative and bureaucratic. And so they're going to want to measure, how does this impact 1L grades? How does this impact bar passage rates? And so this is not going to completely eliminate the LSAT. Schools do still value it as a standardized way to compare applicants from different backgrounds with different majors, different life experiences. And of course, it lets them see whether an applicant is ready for the bar exam or likely to pass the bar exam. And so this change will impact law school admissions over time. But for now, the LSAT remains your best chance to maximize your odds of admission. And so if you'd like my help on your journey to getting the highest LSAT score possible, ideally a 170 or above, my team and I would be glad to help you out. We offer live online classes via Zoom, on-demand video courses, small group coaching, and one-on-one coaching. You can check out the links below to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. And in the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.